Welcome back to the channel where I talk to the people behind Australia's franchises, asking them the real questions as to what makes their franchises tick and why you should consider buying into their network. Less sales talk and more real info that gets under the covers of franchise ownership. Today's quickfire Q&A spotlight is on Ferguson Blair Bakehouse. If you want to see you're a good fit to Ferguson Blair, take the assessment in the description below via the link. Or if you're just chasing more information after hearing what you've heard, head over to hatch.com, search for Ferguson Blair, hit the inquire button to get their franchise information pack and talk with one of the team members. Today, I'm joined with Steve Blair, who is the fourth generational family member and CEO of Ferguson Blair. Welcome, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. Great to be here.
Going back to the origins, I suppose, Steve, can you give us a company overview? When was Ferguson Blair? It's probably the oldest brand that I've spoken to so far, but can you give us an overview of the company, when it was established, bit of history about it? What size are you currently at? And then what's the vision? What's the goal for the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, sure. We'd love to. Yeah, look, I think you're right. I think we would be Australia's oldest, longest, continuously running, owned by the same family retail bakery in Australia, for sure. There's been lots, but they've been bought and they've been sold, but dating back to 1901. And really our journey started before then. Like if I take it right back to my great-grandfather, started his trade in Germany, Paris, then London, came across in 1909. And then the Ferguson family had similar heritage back then. And long story short, we came together in the 1980s after trading through, world wars and depressions and all those kind of things.
Yeah, wow.
And sort of, I guess, stumbled into franchising, which has been great. So fast forward to now, we've got 82 stores. In terms of our overall mission, you've got my T-shirt here, right? I mean, we're in bakery. We're not selling vitamins and broccoli. Let's face it. You buy a vanilla slice, you're buying a little dose of happiness. There's lots of businesses that have that, but our business is all about bringing happiness to people through really good quality baked goods. And it will always be that. At a vision level, we want to be Australia's most famous bakehouse brand, and that's pretty big for us. We're just in Victoria and have been for a long time. Like, quality growth's really important. We don't need to be the biggest. I think if you do become the biggest, for us, it's got to be on the back of having been the best. Yeah. But I think if you aim to be the biggest, sometimes it means that you don't deliver on being the best. And my brother and I, being family members, get out of bed to make great product for the market that we are serving.
That's interesting. The Victorian based. Have you ever tried a stint interstate?
We did actually. We launched it's a very long story, which you don't have time for here, but we launched a very similar business into Queensland in 2009. It's called Puckles Family Bakehouse, and it's because my grandfather started our first bakery in Puckle Street, Moonee Ponds here in Victoria.
Oh, yeah.
But we were in a process with the Ferguson family at the time around buying them out and the family separating after a very long, successful marriage. And long story short is that happened. And so we had to pull all of our energies back here to Victoria. So we've still got a store up there that's running. And a lot of the learnings that we took from that experience, we're looking forward to leveraging in future, because the broader plan is to be able to expand into New South Wales and Queensland, where I really do think for a market like us, or for a business like us, where our position is great classic Aussie bakery with sort of new twists on old favourites, really. There's lots of hip new joints coming out all the time. They're on Instagram and TikTok and, whatever the latest, greatest yuzu flavour is, that's cool. We might jump in and out of those trends. But the secret to our success is that we can jump in and out of those trends, but not have all of our eggs in that one basket. And we've seen it over the years. In the 80s, it was the Mississippi mud cake. In the 90s, it was cupcakes. It's been donuts. It's come and go. And we jump in and we jump out. And we jump in and we jump out. But a lot of businesses that jump on those trends, they're not around for 5 or 10 years because it's not a long-term proposition. But great Australian baked goods has seen us through 120 years. And you think about the ups and downs that have happened in that period of time. Wow. We've been through it's our second pandemic. How's that? It's our second pandemic. First one, 1980, and we made it through. We've got a couple of scars, but we're here.
Diving into the product, the service offerings, And we spoke about just there about, we can jump in on trends like the Mississippi mud cake, etc., and etc. But what is the core product that is yours, that holds the business together, that it's focused on? It's great having these shining lights over here, but what's the core that keeps people coming back to you guys?
Yeah. I think when you think about classic Aussie bakery, the things that are going to come to mind is a great meat pie, sausage roll, vanilla slice, custard tart, chocolate eclair. And then there's all the stuff. Oh, no, we're served with a great coffee, right? That has been for so long just a classic icon of Australian food. And it's this permissible thing because it's bakery, it's made, hopefully most of the time it's made with great quality. It certainly is at our place. And over the years, bakeries have been very family oriented. Not maybe that many are these days, but ours still is very family oriented. So that's the core range. Great savouries, great small cakes, fantastic coffee. We're working on our sandwich range actually. When you think about bakery, I think you expect a really good sandwich or bread style offering in that space, and that's something that we're paying a lot of attention to at the moment. We want to improve on what we're doing there. But I think the beauty of our business is that we sell into every day part plus events. You've got morning, lunch, afternoon with everything that we do. And we see that on the trend, but people are coming in the afternoon and there's that home meal replacement thing, especially when people are time depleted and you get some really, very high costs of living, and, a meat pie and a bit of salad on a plate. It's about as good as you get for the money that you pay for. So go right into evening meals and a nice, affordable but delicious dessert. And then you're talking functions, especially birthdays, of course, but everything from a birthday cake to a wedding cake to corporate catering, those kind of things. And our best franchisees really leverage into those relationships and they can really get some high average transaction value deals there. So being able to sit in that really broad range space has been good for us. We're not a food court business. We sit around that fresh food space where people want to grab something to eat on the run, but it's the fresh food area that we're really focusing on.
Target market and industry trends. So what we want to unpack here is the franchisee coming in here, taking a look at this business. Who can they expect to sell to? And second part of that, what are we seeing in that industry? With your industry, what are we seeing? Is there any trends? Are we going up, going down? Is there different buying behaviors?
Yeah. Well, bakery's very mature. If you look at across all the segments, which we do every year, it's not going like this and it's not going like that. It's, which again is testament to, being in a good space. For us, being a 120-year-old brand, it's no surprise. We have a lot of customers who started shopping with us when their grandmother took them down to the local Ferguson Blair at Coburg, and they've been with us ever since. So, we've got a very, very strong market with baby boomers.
Yeah.
And interestingly, they're just about to have their most prominent time in the spotlight in Australia. I mean, that there's never been more baby boomers. They have mostly paid off their house. They're not as exposed to the interest rate problems that are going on in the market right now. So they're a great customer to have. They're safe, they're loyal, and they are just looking for those really good classic Aussie bakery goods. But we've always got our eye on, well, what were we doing 20 or 30 years ago to make sure that they're with us now? And that's important. And that's when some of these trends come in where, look, we're classic Aussie bakery. We can't pretend to be super cool, uber cool, but we can democratize some of that cool stuff you might see on TikTok, and suddenly there's Ferguson Blair doing that in a donut or that in a cupcake. And so appealing to, we call her Juggling Georgia. We've got a couple of different archetypes of personas in the business, 3 or 4 that we focus on. But you're talking mum and dad families, 2 to 3 kids, they got pets, grey, blue, little bit white collar sort of market. But if you go to any Ferguson Blair, that's what you'll see. We're unpretentious, we're classic, we're great value for what you get, and that's what you're looking for in a Ferguson Blair target customer.
I suppose, given the age of you guys, is that you mentioned the baby boomers there, is that they've grown up with you. They've grown up understanding going to Ferguson Blair with their parents, with their grandparents. So therefore, they are now in that, I suppose, they're in that buying behavior that, hey, this is what I used to do as a kid, so I'm going here for a coffee or a cake or a sandwich.
Absolutely. Yeah. We like to think we're like your favourite auntie who'll give you a little sneaky treat every now and then, made with love, little bit of cheek, but very genuine. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Jumping in now to ongoing fees, we're going to look at what the royalty structure is. Is there a marketing fund? What other ongoing fees is associated with a Ferguson player? And then the frequency of payment, is it weekly, is it fortnightly or monthly? Can you unpack that for us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're quite different to lots of other franchises in the sense that we manufacture almost everything that our stores sell.
Central kitchen,
Central
and then
kitchen, shipped out daily. Vanilla sliced chocolate eclairs, the wedding cakes, the sandwiches are in-house. We've got contract roasted coffee, but everything else is done by us. So it's very wholesale on that basis, which is why we don't have royalty fees. So our model runs on being able to sell our product at the right price to the franchisee. We have something called an administration levy. It's 3% on top of the cost of goods, that wholesale price, but it's on purchase. So what happens after that, franchisees don't have to finish the week, finish the month, and send off 7% royalty and 3% in a marketing levy back to us as the franchisor. It's done. Product's purchased. Now, there's good reason for franchisors to have marketing funds, but only if you're not the wholesaler or the manufacturer, I should say. We make that product, and our model only works if you can sell the cakes and the pies that we've sent you. We have a very significant marketing budget every year. The franchisee doesn't have to contribute to that directly. They buy the product, and we're going to spend that money on radio or TV or socials, whatever it is, to try and get the interest up around that. So no royalties, a very small administration levy on cost of goods.
Yep.
And in terms of the billing, it's a weekly delivery, a weekly charge. You've got we've got 14 days terms, and it's as simple as that.
Very simple model, distribution model, centralized kitchen. I like it. It's clean, less administration headaches.
Yeah, absolutely.
Training and support provided to franchisees. Now, I say it time and time again, this is probably the most nervous time for a person, which is we're going to be opening up our business. And it's very important, I find, and I believe it's crucially important for people looking at franchises that they understand what sort of assistance, what sort of training program do you have prior to commencement? And then what does it look like from day one? What sort of training and support you have moving forward from there?
So full training program taking over your store. It's a 6-week program. Most of it's practical. So I think it's about a week and a bit in our office where we go through the theory. And as much as it's a simple model, we're still, particularly when it comes to selling a celebration cake or quoting on something like that, we want to take you through the detail and the systems that we use, all the way through to a standard set of accounts for doing your bookkeeping and all of those kind of things. If you're opening a new store, we help with recruiting new staff and running a process through that. And then sort of for 4.5 to 5 weeks, you're in store and we're showing you, and you've got 2 or 3 of our trainers with you, and then they'll push that through to your first week of trade as well. While you got your training wheels on, you want to get familiar with the business. So that takes you up to launch. We have a spectacular score on our training program. It's NPS sitting up in the 90s. Which is just great, and they're always like, we want more. They love it. So after that, we've implemented a 26-week plan. So every week for the next 26 weeks, the first 6 months of your program, there's a different focus where we will come in, and your business support manager or the training manager will check in on different elements of what's going on. We'll also help set up with local area marketing. I mean, it covers the full breadth of business, especially if you're new to food or our type of business. In terms of ongoing, we've perpetually got a training schedule that's available to everyone for training on coffee and particularly celebration cakes. Most of it is, here's the product, here's the shelf life, here's the price. Yep. And that's pretty rinse and repeat for most of the range. But for celebration cakes, you might have a couple of new staff members join you, and you want to take a Saturday off and leave Mary in charge of, John who's coming in to order a birthday cake for his son. They can do some online training. We've got a Get Smart online learning management system that all staff can participate in, and we encourage all of them to. And coffee training program. I mean, most of the team members who join us want to have that barista badge. It's a sign of sign of coolness these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're very strong on the coffee training. And again, you can't be a great classic Aussie bakery and be serving up pretty ordinary coffee.
And I suppose given the relationship and the uniqueness of your model being, basically manufacturer, no royalties, but it's structured into selling the product, which is ultimately, it forces a true partnership, because if the franchisees are not at their best at selling, well, then that has a direct impact on your manufacturing business. So it incentivizes both parties to actually ensure the success of each unit.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It really does. It's interesting when franchisees come to us. One of the first meetings we'll talk about, for every dollar a customer gives you, 50 cents is for the product, and we'll do a pretty good job of making that every day consistently for you. The other 50 cents is for the way you make them feel. Yeah. And you can dish up the world's best pie, but if the service is not there, forget it. And likewise, great service, ordinary product. I might mention the other thing around training is we run an annual barista comp that the team get very excited about as well. Store gets to win a brand new coffee machine. The barista, who might be an employee of a franchisee, gets their own little coffee machine at home, and we try and bring a bit of excitement to the coffee stage.
A great incentive. Great incentive. Okay. Day in the life. What we're trying to break into or crack into here is, I'm a franchisee. What can I expect? Now, again, a lot of people think of bakeries. I'm up at 1 o'clock in the morning, but given you guys are selling into the bakeries, what does a typical day in the life look like for a franchisee? But what's their role in the business? And I know you touched on the customer service is important, but what else are they in charge of? Are we looking at staff management, rostering, compliance? Can we unpack that, what a day in the life looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. The first answer is it's most of those things. But then, there is the opportunity to go to multi-site, which has a different level of responsibility in there, which I'll talk to. You're right. There are no early starts. All the baking gets done by our team. My brother heads up the manufacturing part and the baking part of the business. So depending on where you are, if you're in a strip location and you've got lots of foot traffic heading on the way to the train station, you might be in store at 6:30. But you've got some shopping centres that really don't come to life until 9 a.m., but they might trade later. So that you've got that classic setup. It varies a bit. We like to tell our franchisees, and I think most retail is a stage. It's a performance. When it's done well, it's set up as a performance. So I think setting the stage, getting it ready, getting all your products lined up, your team focused. Our best franchisees will start the week with a focus for the team. And there's nothing better than turning up. It's not just another day at Ferguson Blair. But David's got us focusing on a suggestive selling our latest new raspberry eclair this week.
Yep.
And setting up some little competitions, might be gold class movie voucher or something for staff. Those kind of things are the things that generate real value. So I guess I'm talking there to leadership and having fun with team.
Yeah.
Boards out the back where they've got funny names for each other and they're talking about each other's pets. They're the best teams. So in terms of rostering, yes, I think right at the start you want to be across rostering and predictive rostering. I mean, our business is very, very reliable, week in, week out. We know, and statistically we've validated this again and again, and we're very temperature dependent.
Yeah.
And it makes ordering very predictable for our stores. And I'll say, if tomorrow is going to be 25 degrees and the same day last year was 20 degrees, we'll be 5% down. 1 degree is 1% for food.
Yeah, wow.
I think it's helpful for me to say that because we've got a really good hold on what drives turnover. Likewise, if there's going to be some cold chili blast tomorrow, the pies and the sausage rolls are going to go through the roof. And if it's going to be 10% cooler, it'll be 10% busier. And so knowing what your turnover is going to be and time of day purchase doesn't change very much. The capacity to predictively roster and then really optimize to make sure that you don't have too many staff or too few staff is really, really good. And look, the latest digital tools that we have around time and attendance and those kind of things make that a lot easier than it was, 5 or 10 years ago where it was a whole lot more gut feel.
Yeah.
You've definitely got rostering, food safety, obviously really vital in a business like ours. They're not manufacturing on site, but they've clearly got ingredients and temperatures and those kind of things that can be at risk. We manage that very closely. Stores will have, twice a year, we'll go in and do a real deep dive around everything from performance to food safety compliance, make sure that everything's safe. And then I mentioned, some stores, they've been in 6-12 months, they're loving it, they're loving the leadership, and they're like, I want a second site. We will then take them through a multi-site test and training program, because then you really do need to be managing and working on the business more than in the business. You've got to be able to recruit great staff, recognize those character traits where you can build trust and have someone who can do that for you. We've got some franchisees with 3 stores. At the height of multi-siting, we had someone with 8 stores, which have got to say for our model, that's unusual. They had run restaurants before, but really, it's worth me saying here, some franchises are investor models, get someone else to run it. That is not the best way to run, I think, any bakery. You want to turn up and you want to see Joe or Jane or Mary or whoever who's there every day, and they remember your kid's name, and that can be hard to do when you're employing managers after managers to do that. The best suited people in a Ferguson Clare store are owner-operators who just love seeing the same customers every day.
Creating the experience. We touched earlier on events and corporate sales. Would you say that your successful franchisees, they're not just, I suppose, trapped in the store, for want of a better word? They're actually out there looking at how can I do catering opportunities. They are involved in the community. What sort of strategies do you have around that? Would you be expecting franchisees to do that?
Yeah, look, we've got, I think we've got an LAM book. There's 100, different things that we have done before that franchisees can just grab and say, I'm going to try this one, I'm going to try that one. But at the simplest level, it's really common sense. Our great franchisees are, someone comes in from the local school, look, can I grab a couple of coffees for the staff room? And the really switched on ones will say, well, look, I tell you what, if you make that 12 coffees for every order, if you, get out amongst the rest of the staff, I'll deliver that for you.
Yeah.
Well, and then they're like, okay, well, we've got, a Mother's Day event for the mums on the staffing roster. And then they'll say, can we have some of your Mother's Day cupcakes and deliver those kind of things? And just grows from there. A couple of franchisees got great relationships there. Same with corporates, depending on where they are. I mean, we've got a store at Victoria Market, and they've got the banks, they've got so many corporate customers there. And again, with great personality, they've got important people or receptionists or secretaries on speed dial so that they can deliver things, they can get them what they need. Personalised as well, I think, with corporate for logos, that kind of stuff, with celebration cakes, on a cupcake, on a donut, on a biscuit, on a big cake. We're very good at being able to do those kind of things, and the stores that really get onto that they get some really big sales.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Staff and requirements. So can you talk to me the size of the structure that you have? How many staff would a typical franchisee have for a single unit? And then how many of those staff would be on at any one time?
Yeah, gotcha. So it certainly varies. I mean, you got stores doing 40 grand a week and stores doing 10 grand a week, and that's all, commensurate with rents and bits and pieces. But the busiest stores will have 4 or 5 on at lunchtime to really peak out. If we're at Chadstone Shopping Centre, you might have that kind of thing, and then lean out towards end of day or start of day, depending on trade. But if I took an average through to the middle, you're 1 to 2 full timers. Most of the rest are casual to allow for that up and down, and they might have 10 to 12 casuals, but some of them are doing 4 or 5 hours a week. You've got students coming and going, and there's some of you got some really cool personalities, and we look for that when we're rostering on. So it's a real mix. You might have a couple of permanent part-time, but most of it, you've got a couple of full-timers, mostly the franchisees, and then some really reliable casuals floating around.
Good. Location requirements and territory information. We spoke earlier that you're shopping centre and strip. Can we unpack that a little bit more? But also, what are you looking for in drivers of the territory? And then the second part of this is, are we dealing with exclusive, non-exclusive? What sort of protection mechanisms do you have in place?
Yeah, terrific. So, first of all, in terms of exclusivity and areas, we don't have exclusivity. I know lots of pizza places and delivery places will. I mean, we've got some stores that are very close together, but have entirely separate sort of shopping precincts going on. Having said that, if any location comes up within 5 kilometres radius of another store, we'll do a real deep dive into cannibalisation.
Yeah.
And it might be that, look, we're just not sure, but look, maybe the franchisee that's closest wants to take that second site, because if the shopping centre doesn't get us, they might be knocking on the door of another bakery franchise, a bakery
Yeah.
independent, and you've got to weigh that up. Is it better to grab it and then expand your footprint than to let another competitor in? So that's how we deal with restrained trade or areas.
Yep.
In terms of where we're located, we always focus on being on the ant trail. We're a small part of our business is destinational.
Mm-hmm.
You imagine celebration cake, high involvement purchase like that. You might drive 10, 20 Ks to get that cake for your kids or your business. But, pie, sausage roll, you're in a moment, you're already doing something else before you think about that. So we need to be on that ant trail. We need to be on their doorstep, looking great, smelling great, that kind of thing. So hence a strip location, normally in a busy precinct. Ideally, it's got a bit of fresh food around it. And it might be near a train station, but it's high ant trail, high foot traffic, very similar with shopping centres.
Mm-hmm.
We have one drive-through actually, and it's one of our, depending on the day of the week, it's our number 1 or number 2 store. But still similar on a very, very busy road. It was a great test for us. I mean, there's lots of risk trying these new location strategies, but that has been a great experience for us, and we're looking to do more of those. But they're very highly sought after at the moment. So again, we're just steady as she goes, find the right spot. We're running sort of 70 to 80% of the traffic through that location being drive-through.
What size footprint are you looking at, Steve? What sort of square meterage?
Yeah, look, anywhere from in a kiosk type location, you're 30 square meters, like really quite small, and then there'd be an allocated seating area, through to you're really not much more than 100 square meters. You've got table service. We don't want to be too dependent on lots of table service and the labour that comes with that. So a nice mix, seats and chairs are good, but we're not going into that full-fledged restaurant.
And we don't need kitchen requirements or anything for the site. It's just really, I'd imagine it's just fridges.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. You've got storage, very little grease. I mean, we do legally need greasy waste, but we're not frying or cooking anything. It's just dishes being washed off for those stores that have them. And also, there's always an opportunity. We've got some stores that are very, very small, and we are looking at the moment at more express locations, which might be just core range, very small footprint, which would just require one person to run that store. And so finding those unique spots. So everything from a large drive-through through to grab and go, pie, vanilla slice, quick coffee, let's go.
Franchisee qualifications and experience required. Now, I imagine, what are we looking for? Are we looking for bakers? Are we looking for customer service? What is it that really creates the selection criteria for you guys? Do they need to have a qualification or an MBA? What are we looking for?
MBA, I should think of an acronym for Master of Business, Master of Customer Happiness, and
yes,
MCH is what they need. Really, it is. It's so personality based. No, we absolutely don't need, and sometimes don't even want someone to come in who's going to come with predisposed ideas around baking and bits and pieces. Although that doesn't matter. We've had some very good pastry cooks said, I don't want to do it anymore. Give me the uniform. I just want to sell it. You guys look after that stuff. No requirements there. They're going to need a driver's license probably to get down to their store, right? And especially if they want to leverage some of those local area marketing ideas that I'd suggested before. But beyond that, when we meet a franchisee, and sometimes it's on a screen or face-to-face, the number one thing we're looking for is, do they naturally want to engage with you?
Yeah.
That is what people buy in our business and lots of other retail businesses. It's that experience. You think about that favourite coffee shop that you've got. Hopefully it's a Ferguson Clare. But if it's not, it's Dave down there, knows how I make it. He asked me about my kids. We're looking for people who have got a great smile, really want to engage. It's that charisma. And they can be highly sought after, right? So it can be pretty tough. We also want to know, you might have people with a great personality, but if they've had jobs that are sedentary, and they're in an office all the time, we need to make sure they're comfortable with the fact that you're going to be on your feet a long time in a shop. And you've got to be ready for that.
In a very fast environment, I'd imagine.
It is, that's right. And so they might be smart enough and bubbly enough, but are you sure you're ready for the proper retail experience? So in those cases, and in most cases, we'll do a test shift, and we've got some franchisees who are happy to house them for a couple of hours and say, look, you come and throw the uniform on, we'll give you some basic tasks, really get a feel for it, make sure it's right for you. And we do that well before they get into this very committed stage of devoting lots of time and money to the process.
That's great. That's great. Unique selling proposition and competitive advantage. What would you say Ferguson Blair's USP is?
I think in terms of the franchising space, we're unique around that no royalty, proper wholesale. We make it. Our capacity to be really fast to market on new trends or new flavors, those kind of things. It's, we've got something, we test it out. We've got a couple of fantastic people in our NPD team. We can turn around those kind of things very quickly. So I think that's really important. Keeping things interesting. I mentioned those classic custard tart, chocolate eclair pie. Yeah. But, the things that people get, that keep people really interested is, our latest Valentine's Day range or Mother's Day range, where we've got a tweak and we've got some new flavour where they experiment. They might still come back to the basics, but they'll work on that kind of stuff. In terms of for the customer, really is the space that we occupy is that classic Australian bakery, but we're very convenient. We're in lots and lots of different locations. And, twice a year, we do a deep customer survey of our customers. And we also bench across about 20 other brands that they might shop with. And it's everyone from Macca's to other cafes to other bakeries. So that we can see where we rate really strongly. And it's always quality and freshness. Mm-hmm. So, I know everyone says they're quality, they're this, but some people it's fast and some people it's other things and it's low price. We're not cheap. But for what you get, we're not expensive. But the freshness and the quality is really core for us at an offering level.
It's measured.
Yes.
It's measured. Factual. Excellent. Challenges and potential risks for franchisees. This is, we can talk about macro or we can talk about micro. And it's always the challenge if the wrong person comes into the brand that they don't have that, that personality to drive the success of it. But what do you see is the main challenge for a franchisee coming in, and what other risk factors should people consider?
Yeah, for sure. Making sure you're a match for the brand. Absolutely. So we try and do that. People come in and they're like, I'm so excited. I love your products. I'm going to be great at this. And that's not always the case. And that's a hard message to deliver to people.
Particularly when they're brand advocates, because they're inquiring because they love who you are, what you do. But if it's just not right for them, it's very hard to let them down.
That's exactly right. But it's on us to, if we really see a reason why we don't think that's going to work, then, depending on what you're buying and the investment you're going to make, that's a big investment. We want that to be right as possible for them. We don't always get it right. We know when we've got it wrong. So every year we try and, get better at that kind of process, which is why we'll do in-store placements, make sure they're right for the brand and get a range of people around them on the way through. So that's the first risk. I think in any franchise, are you passionate about the product? Is it right for you? I think in terms of, especially the current market, hospitality is in a really as tough a space as it's been, especially in Victoria for a long, long time. So, I mentioned that we've been around for a long, long time. We've been through tough periods and working together through things like that. I think, looking for brands that have demonstrated that kind of resilience is really important. And knowing that things come and go, it's never been more true of that cool hipster Insta thing that just comes along. And it's hot for a year or two, but what sits on the other side of it? You've got a 6 or a 7 year lease to make sure that you can leverage that asset for hopefully 2 leases or 3 leases. Some trends not going to last half that time.
Yeah.
So I think they're things to really, to watch out for. There's the usual stuff, it's a high cost operating environment at the moment at an interest rate level, cost of goods level, all those kind of things. We're always trying to do what we can at making sure that we still represent value, even though a pie costs way more than it did 4 or 5 years ago, but so did a Big Mac, and so did a coffee.
Yeah.
And that's where the service comes in. I tell you what, it's very hard to overestimate just how valuable customer connections are and all of that. And especially, when we talk about that target market of ours or the core market of baby boomers, a lot of them are looking for company and, they might be retired and you might be a part of their day or a part of their week. And if you do that well, classic Aussie bakery with a real warm cuddle and a treat can be a really safe space.
Last but not least, we're almost there. And I always like to finish on a high, and we're going into testimonials or success stories. And this can be something personal, it can be something about a franchisee, or it can be something about the brand itself, what has happened. But Can you give us what's been probably your biggest highlight since you've been sitting in the hot seat?
Yeah, look, most of the time it's bumping into someone who, like, I remember someone who came up and said, are you Steve Clare? And I look a bit like my dad, and he was third generation, but she came up and said, I used to work in your store in Puckle Street, and I bathed him upstairs when he was a baby, when your grandfather and your grandmother were running the shop.
Yeah, wow.
And it's those stories just abound. I mean, it was only a couple of weeks ago, I get this envelope in the mail and someone had sent the brochure from their wedding cake and they bought it from, we've been on the corner of Sydney Road and Bell Street here in Coburg since 1935, same shop.
Yeah.
They bought their wedding cake there. And we've been in the same shop at the Victoria Market since 1931. And there are people who just totally surprise me with their stories and their affection for the brand, which is that constant reminder for, wow, we better make sure we're making those stories now. So my kids or whoever runs the business in 50 years is having the joy of what I'm experiencing around people telling, oh, I remember when I heard from Steve Clare or Mike Clare or something like that. So I think that stuff's phenomenal. We served the Queen and the President of the United States in the late 50s and 60s back then. Now, we're a bit more everyday Australian now. I'm not sure if they'd call us for those kind of things, but, we've had some pretty cool stories around that. And then, look, we've got some great franchisees who, even right now on our website, you can hear them talking about their experience.
Yeah.
And actually a couple of them right now are in the process of setting up second stores. That makes me really happy.
Yeah.
That they want a second site. But, our very first franchisee in Moonee Ponds took over our original Puckle Street store in the 90s. He had that store for, I think, 20 years, and he's like, I'm going to retire.
Yeah, wow.
And he did, and then 5 years later, he came back and he bought our Sunbury store. I'm like, what are you doing, Vince? And he said, well, I've been looking around all these other businesses. I just didn't trust the numbers, so I'm back. And then he did another 10 years at Sunbury. That's pretty cool.
And that is awesome, and it's testament to the business that underpins the framework of Ferguson Blair. So listen, appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Steve. And to those out there, if you want to see if you're a good fit for a Ferguson Blair, take the assessment in the link in the description, or if you simply just want more information, head over to hatch.com, search for Ferguson Blair, hit the inquire button, and we'll send you out their franchise information pack and introduce you to the team. Steve Blair, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure unpacking Ferguson Blair with you. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks, Dave. Cheers, mate.